to another episode of Persuasion Station, the show where I convince you to read a book I enjoyed. And I bet you're wondering, how long will she continue to attempt this faux accent? And the answer is not very long. I cannot do it well. Also, I might have wished for spring a little too hard because now it is extremely hot. And just, we just skipped right onto summer. So I'm just gonna take off this jacket because that's a lie. There goes that. Anyway, I just finished Jade City and I have not been able to stop thinking about it. This book was described to me like a wuxia story, which is like those old style martial arts movies where there's a hero that can like jump from wire to wire up into the air, or can like kind of fly and kick someone that's like 15 feet away. One of those stories, and then you just throw in some organized crime basically, and I loved that. Having grown up on those movies, both my parents are martial arts instructors, I just really loved the idea of having a book that could give me that, and it really delivered. So this particular segment or episode or whatever, what I'm gonna try to do is convince you to pick this book up. Maybe. Possibly. I mean, my powers of persuasion are not the strongest, but this book is totally worth it. I should tell you a bit about kind of where it's set and the synopsis before I go into why I think it's so great. Jade City is the first installment of an epic saga in a world analogous to Earth, where a special group of people in an East Island nation called Kekan can wield Jade in a very particular way. This stone gives the wearer a particular set of supernatural abilities like super speed or super strength, and it's traditionally wielded by a group called the Green Bones. In a previous era, before this story takes place, the Green Bones are united against a coded colonial invader. And there's this great nationalist tradition in mythology surrounding the Green Bones as the defenders of the island nation. But now, after the colonial invader has been driven out, Greenbone clans have divided and there is a war between them that is brewing. This story follows one of these major clans as they navigate this new world. So I'm going to go through like a couple of reasons why I think you should pick it up. In my mind, the number one reason is the world, and I think it really comes down to three different things. First is, I think in low fantasy books, it can be difficult to write a world that is distinct enough from our own, but doesn't edge into unrealistic descriptions or things that really kick you out of the story. And the words and phrases don't feel out of place. They feel like there's something someone would actually say. The little dashes of culture, I think, are clearly influenced by our world, but are distinct enough to make it feel a little bit foreign. And I really love that. I think that's incredibly hard to do, and I think that speaks to her writing abilities. One great example of this, and I really love slang. I love it when you can pull off slang and it doesn't feel to me like it's shoehorned in. It doesn't feel like it's fetch, like someone is trying to make fetch happen. And I think that happens a lot in fantasy novels. And I didn't feel this way. Like there was a phrase, it was stay cut, which fits so well with this idea of, you're wearing this cut stone, and if you have it, you're staying alert. You're not letting it overpower you. You're staying like calm and together. Even the different clan names, No Peak and Mountain, and if someone wants you killed, they whisper your name. These little phrases felt distinct enough that I knew we weren't on Earth, but they didn't feel like someone had just made them up. It felt natural. And that was one thing I really just loved about this, was the culture was, distinct enough down to even the language, but it didn't kick you out of the story. You still could follow the politics and make these connections. The second thing that I really loved about the world
is the magic system. I'm a big fan of magic with consequences. Like, that's another thing that I liked. You know, they did have these superpowers that lifted them above and beyond the average person, but it didn't come without tradition. It didn't come without a physical and mental cost. It's so clear that she thought about how to integrate the magic with the world and how to make it believable and with consequence. So that was like another thing I just really loved. And the third, and I think this is something that some people will be like, really, Leah? Like, this is the thing. And it's actually the politics. This is a highly political book, and the politics are infused throughout the world. I would say it's almost late 80s, early 90s. You know, there are typewriters and airplanes, and to me this feels like the era where a lot of the countries in the region are starting to open up to a kind of global capitalist market, and that's affecting the politics in the country. And there are other countries that are growing in power, or that have a significant amount of power, that are trying to get their resources, and they're deciding what to do about that. So there's not only intergenerational conflict within the clan that we follow, where the old generation remembers an era where all of the clans were united and fighting an honorable cause, and they want to believe that can still continue, and the younger generation is noticing these widening rifts and these threats to their own part of the country, and they're trying to defend that. For me, as someone who studied, you know, global international politics, and there's a particular fascination with diplomatic tension, I really enjoyed that. You know, I enjoyed it when one character of one clan would get together with another character from a different clan, and they would have this sort of coded language, and you would be in the character's head as I try to decode and interpret what this other person is saying and what it means. And I just love it. It makes me so happy. Like, I find that thrilling. You know, some people love adventures and dragons and sword fights, but like me, you know, put me in a room with some like coded diplomacy, passive aggression, and I'm here for it. And it kind of brings me to the next part, which is the writing. And the writing, of course, is like the base of the world, but it's also, I think she writes fight scenes particularly well, which if you're going to write like a heavily influenced martial arts gangster book, then you have to know how to write good fight scenes. It's not that they're like every other beat, there's like something is happening. There are lengths where it's, you know, kind of simmering just under the surface. When they do come, they're always, almost always, really, you know, fast-paced and quick, and you know, they really ratchet up your heartbeat. So if you're into that, then I would also recommend picking up this book. Like, you're in for a treat. It's just so good. And the final thing for me, and I think this is the part where people disagree the most, is the characters. And really, I think part of the reason why there's some division on the characters is actually a pacing issue. This is definitely an introductory installment. You know what I mean? There's this Cold War brewing between the clans, and you're constantly wondering if it's going to break to the surface. And I think if you're constantly in this same place of tension, there might not be as much of a place for like evident character growth, right? The character growth doesn't start coming in really, I would say, until the end. But when it does, you know, when the characters move from archetype to fully fleshed people, and also people who've changed, I think one character in particular changes a lot, that's really satisfying to me. But for some, it doesn't happen as quickly, and it's hard to be in characters' heads that are constantly thinking strategy. That can be like a slog for some people, dealing always with that strategy and quiet internal conflict that doesn't really fully connect with the external conflict in an explosive way until towards the end. Those are like the main reasons why you should pick up the book. If those things don't sound great to you, then I mean, I guess I failed, but also like, I'm not gonna make you read something you hate. That's just like rude. But if you decide to pick it up because of what I've said, like, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Jade City, ooh, I almost knocked the book over. It's fine. Always a struggle on this channel. Always a struggle.